The night was still, and the stars above gleamed as if they were the eyes of the heavens themselves, watching, waiting. But beneath that tranquil sky, a story began that would forever change the course of existence. A story not of men, but of angels, of beings who once stood at the very edge of creation, revered as the guardians of divine order. But in the silence of their hearts something dark stirred, a seed of pride, of ambition, and of rebellion. What could have caused such beings so pure and radiant to fall from grace? The angels, the first stars of heaven, were not mere servants. They were governors of the cosmos, the very foundation of divine law. But something within them began to twist, something that would echo throughout the universe for millennia to come. Their story is one of unimaginable power, betrayal, and a judgment so final it would leave even the stars trembling. But why did this happen? How did these mighty beings, once entrusted with the most sacred of roles, fall into the depths of sin? To understand their descent, we must first look into the heavens, where their ambition took root and where it all began. Come closer, for the tale of these 7 angels is not just a story of their fall. It is a tale that reflects the very nature of temptation, the corruption of power, and the ultimate price of pride. Their names are written in the annals of time, not as legends of glory, but as cautionary tales for us all. And as we step into the shadows of their story, we will uncover the truths that have been hidden in the light of day. The angels are bound, but their influence still lingers, shaping our world in ways few of us can understand. As we delve deeper into this tale, remember, their sin did not begin on earth. It began in heaven, where power was meant to be pure and good, but corruption has a way of twisting even the most sacred of gifts. Now, let us journey together through the realms of heaven and beyond, as we unravel the story of the 7 fallen angels, the price of their sin, and the haunting echo of their rebellion. Before their fall, the 7 angels were the brightest stars in heaven, each handpicked by the Creator to fulfill an essential role in maintaining divine order. These were not ordinary angels. No, they were governors, leaders in the heavenly realms, entrusted with great power and responsibility. They stood in the presence of God, their radiance unmatched, their purpose sacred. But as with all who wield great power, the temptation to twist that power, to challenge the very foundation of creation itself, loomed just beyond their grasp. Among them, Uriel, the keeper of the deepest secrets of the universe, held knowledge that no being was meant to possess. His role was to guard the mysteries of existence, to keep the boundaries of wisdom intact. But wisdom unchecked can lead to pride, and pride can corrupt even the most sacred truths. Uriel began to yearn for more knowledge, more understanding, more power. He whispered forbidden names, divine syllables that echoed through the heavens, stretching the boundaries of what should have remained pure. And in this desire to know more, he lost sight of the very purpose he was created for. Then there was Uriel, the architect of the heavenly order. His task was to ensure that the cosmos functioned in harmony with the divine will. He was a master of balance, a weaver of the threads that held creation together. Yet as he looked upon the perfection of God's design, he began to question it. Was there not a better way to organize the universe? Was there not a more perfect order, one that he could create? Uriel's mind, once focused on perfection, now became clouded with the desire to reshape what had already been established. In his heart he began to imagine a new order, one that would be ruled by his own hand. Uriel, a being of immense power and wisdom, was tasked with maintaining balance and justice. He was the thunder-bearer, a figure of divine authority who held the scales of righteousness. Yet as he stood in the courts of heaven watching over the law, doubt began to creep into his thoughts. Could justice be more than what had been set forth by God? Could there be a better way to measure right from wrong? Uriel, once a figure of unwavering authority, now began to consider whether the laws of heaven could be improved, even by him. Kokabel, the watcher of the stars, had been entrusted with the care of the heavens themselves, the constellations that adorned the night sky. He was the guardian of cosmic order, a sentinel who maintained the divine balance of the universe. But Kokabel too grew restless. As he gazed at the stars, he began to dream of altering the heavens, charting new paths that were not written by the Creator's hand. The stars in his mind could serve as a map to a greater untapped power, a power that would allow him to rule beyond the confines of heaven. Tamuel, the master of dreams and shadow, was entrusted with the creation and upkeep of the divine mind. He understood the intricacies of consciousness and the infinite possibilities of thought. But what began as a desire to understand the mind of God turned into a hunger to shape reality itself. Tamuel began to craft worlds within his mind, creating simulations of existence where he was the supreme ruler. His dreams became his prison as he lost himself in alternate realities, forever building false worlds that were detached from the true creation. Barakli, the healer of heaven, was once a being of mercy, known for his compassion and reconciliation. He soothed the wounded, mended broken spirits, and brought peace where there was strife. But Barakli began to question the very nature of mercy. Was compassion a sign of weakness? Was there a stronger form of purity in destruction? He began to believe that true strength lay not in mercy, but in wrath, and he sought to purge the heavens of what he saw as imperfections. His heart, once full of healing light, turned dark with the desire to destroy. Lastly, there was Azel, the mightiest of them all. He was a warrior, a being of immense strength, a teacher of divine combat. His role was to lead the heavenly host in battle, to defend the realms of heaven from any threat. But Azel's vision became clouded by his own pride. He began to believe that war was not just an act of defense, it was a form of worship. In his heart, he began to view conflict as the highest calling, a divine test of strength that would prove his worth. He believed that by challenging the Creator, he would find true meaning, true power. Each of these angels, once exalted in their stations, began to entertain dangerous thoughts. Their desires to reshape the universe, to understand the divine secrets that were never meant to be known, began to twist their once pure hearts. And so they conspired in secret, in the hidden corners of heaven, away from the watchful eyes of the other celestial beings. Their rebellion was not open, no dramatic clash between light and dark. No, it was quiet, a subtle shift in their hearts, a whisper of ambition that grew into something far more dangerous. They did not seek to overthrow God. No, that was a fool's dream. Instead, they sought to create something of their own, a parallel order, a new realm that would rival the one they had been entrusted with. And so, they began to weave their plans in secret, using their powers to craft a new world, a world that would not be subject to the Creator's will. They sought to mimic the divine order, to replicate the Creator's work without the divine breath that gave it life. But in the quiet rebellion of these 7 angels, there was one thing they failed to realize. To tamper with the divine order is to tear apart the very fabric of existence. To twist the power that was meant to be used for good is to invite destruction. And so their sin began, not in the physical world, but in the very heavens themselves. Their pride, their ambition, and their desire to create a world of their own, separate from the Creator's will, marked the beginning of their fall. Their rebellion did not go unnoticed. The Creator, in his infinite wisdom, knew of their plans. And so, he prepared a judgment that would echo through eternity. The 7 angels, Once the brightest stars in heaven would be cast down, bound in chains, and thrown into a realm of chaos where they would remain for 10,000 years. Their power would be stripped from them, their wings burned, and their very existence reduced to nothing more than a warning to all who would follow in their footsteps. Their fall is not just a tale of angels and their pride, it is a reminder to all of us. For power, unchecked, can lead to corruption. Pride, when allowed to fester, can turn even the most sacred beings into the most tragic of figures. The lesson here is not just for the angels, but for us all. We are all tempted by the desire to have more, to be more, and sometimes we are willing to twist the truth to get it. But, as we will see, the consequences of this temptation are far-reaching, and they affect not just the individual, but the very fabric of creation itself. Now, let us turn our attention to the next chapter of this story, where we will see the full weight of their sin and the judgment that followed. The angels may have fallen, but their legacy endures. Through their actions, we are shown the dangers of unchecked ambition and the devastating consequences of betrayal. As the rebellion took root in the hearts of the 7 angels, their actions moved from quiet thoughts to open schemes. It was no longer enough to merely question the divine order. They desired to create a world of their own. Not one governed by the Creator's laws, but one that was free from his rule, a realm where they could carve out their own domain. This was no longer a mere desire for knowledge or power. It was an outright betrayal of the very fabric of creation. The betrayal and the plot to create a parallel universe. The seeds of betrayal had been planted when these angels, originally tasked with overseeing the divine order, began to look at their creation with envy. They had seen how the Creator shaped the universe, weaving it with purpose and design, and for a time they had been content in their roles, fulfilling their duties with reverence and dedication. But as time passed, their pride began to grow, subtly at first, like a whisper in the wind, until it consumed their hearts entirely. Uriel, keeper of secrets, was the first to voice his discontent. The knowledge he guarded was immense, but it was also limited. What if there was more? What if there were paths to deeper, hidden wisdom? He began to teach the others about cosmic doors, secret pathways to realms that the Creator had not intended for anyone to walk. Uriel, the architect of heavenly order, questioned the very structure of the universe. Was it truly perfect? Could it be improved upon? His thoughts turned darker as he sought to reshape the divine order to his liking, to impose his vision of perfection on the cosmos. The others, too, found themselves swept up in this newfound rebellion. Uriel, the bearer of thunder and divine justice, began to waver. His role was to uphold balance, yet in his heart, he wondered whether the laws of the Creator were truly the most just. Why could there not be another way? Kokobil, who had always guarded the stars, began to imagine a new constellation, a new map for the heavens. Tamuel, the master of dreams, grew obsessed with alternate realities, crafting false worlds in his mind where he was the creator. Berkeley, once the healer, grew to believe that mercy was a weakness and that strength could only be found in destruction. Azel, the mightiest warrior of them all, came to believe that war was the truest form of worship, that only through battle could one prove their worth. Together, they began to meet in secret. In the second heaven, between the firmament and the throne, they formed a council, a hidden gathering where they would plot their rebellion. They would not challenge God directly. That would be foolish, they thought. Instead, they would create something entirely new, something that would rival God's creation, a parallel universe, one not bound by divine law. They used their knowledge, their power, and their abilities to craft a world, an echo of the divine realm, one that would be free from the Creator's rule. They sought to replicate God's speech, his words of creation, but without his breath, without his divine essence. It was a counterfeit universe, a mere shadow of the real thing. And in this world, they would draw power, worship, and influence. They believed they could control this world, shaping it to their will, ruling over it as gods in their own right, the sin and the fall. As the angels continued their plot to create a new world, their sin became undeniable. What began as a simple desire to improve upon God's work grew into something much darker. They no longer wanted to be his servants, they wanted to replace him. The desire to be like God, to create and control life, overtook them. They believed that if they could birth a new world, they would be free from God's constraints. They would be the creators, the rulers, and the worshipped. But their sin did not remain hidden for long. The Creator, in his omniscience, saw the thoughts of their hearts and the whispers of their conspiracy. He knew that their ambitions had gone beyond the acceptable boundaries. What started as a simple question, a doubt in the perfection of his creation, had evolved into a rebellion that threatened the very fabric of existence. Their plot to create a parallel universe was a direct challenge to the Creator's authority. It was not just an act of disobedience, it was an act of treason. To seek to create a new realm outside of God's will was an act of supreme arrogance. The angels had been entrusted with the order of creation, and in their pride, they had decided that they could do better than the Creator. But no rebellion, no matter how well conceived, can escape the judgment of the Almighty. The Creator did not act in anger or fury. He did not need to wage war or draw sword against his creation. No, his judgment was quiet, yet unyielding. The 7 angels were not destroyed in battle or consumed by fire. Instead, they were bound by chains forged from starlight and divine judgment. The very power they had once wielded was now used to bind them, to imprison them in a realm of chaos. Their fall was not swift. It was a slow, deliberate descent into darkness. The very angels who had once been the bright stars of heaven were now cast down, their light extinguished, their wings burned to stumps. They were dragged to the lowest realm, beyond heaven, beyond the firmament, into a place where time and space no longer mattered. This was the price of their sin. The creation of a parallel universe had not only failed, but it had led to their utter fall from grace. The consequences of their actions were not limited to their own downfall. The creation of a parallel world, even one that was only an echo of the real thing, had far-reaching effects. The rebellion of these angels would later inspire the rebellion of Lucifer. Their fall would give rise to the Nephilim, the offspring of the fallen angels who would come to earth and corrupt mankind. The seeds of chaos sown by the 7 angels would ripple throughout history, infecting the world with their rebellion, leading to the fall of humanity itself. Their story is not just a tale of angels and their betrayal, it is a reflection of the dangers of unchecked ambition. It is a warning to us all about the consequences of seeking to create our own reality, to take what was meant for good and twist it for our own purposes. Their sin was not just in the rebellion itself, but in their desire to be creators, without the wisdom to know the cost of such power. And so, the angels who once stood at the very gates of heaven now remain in chains, waiting for the day of judgment, when they will be brought forth once more, not for redemption, but for final destruction. Their sin will echo through eternity, a reminder of the consequences of defying the divine order. As the 7 angels' rebellion reached its peak, there was no turning back. The Creator, whose wisdom encompasses all that is known and unknown, did not act in fury, but with a solemn, measured response. His judgment was not one of battle or bloodshed, for the pride of these angels had already sealed their fate. The punishment was not of immediate annihilation, but a far more torturous sentence. They would be bound for 10,000 years. Their sin, the very idea of creating a new world outside of God's will, demanded a punishment that would not only reflect the gravity of their actions, but also serve as a warning to all of heaven and earth. The Creator's response was simple, yet profound. These once glorious beings, these guardians of creation, were now to be imprisoned in a realm of chaos and torment, where time itself seemed to stretch and bend. Uriel, who had once been their commander, now stood as their jailer. He was the one tasked with binding them, the one who would see them through their punishment. The chains that bound them were not ordinary chains, but those forged from starlight and divine judgment. These chains were as much a symbol of the Creator's power as they were a manifestation of the angel's failure. They were unbreakable, wrapping around each angel like molten iron, scorching their very essence, yet never allowing them to burn away. The agony of their existence was to remain in this state, trapped in a world beyond heaven, beyond earth, in a place that could only be described as the pit of despair. Their once radiant forms, which had shone brighter than the stars, were now shadows of what they had been. Their wings, scorched and useless, hung limply at their sides. Their voices, which once sang praises before the Creator, were now reduced to howls of torment, echoing in the vast emptiness of their prison. This was their punishment, a complete loss of purpose, a complete stripping away of the power and glory they had once known. For 10,000 years, they would remain here, their light dimmed, their authority nullified, and their sins standing as a dark monument to their pride. The Creator's justice was clear. There would be no quick end, no swift resolution. The seven would remain bound for a millennium, allowing their sin to echo throughout the cosmos. Their chains were not just physical, but spiritual, a reminder of what happens when the divine order is broken, when beings entrusted with power use it for selfish gain. And as Uriel looked upon them, he knew that their punishment was not just for them, but for all of creation. For in their fall, they had not only violated their roles, but had endangered the very balance of existence. Though the seven angels were bound in chains and cast into their prison, their influence did not cease. The consequences of their rebellion were far-reaching, stretching across the heavens and eventually to earth itself. Their sin did not die with them, but instead left behind a ripple that would touch the very fabric of creation, shaping the world in ways few could understand. One of the most immediate consequences of their fall was the inspiration it gave to others. The rebellion of the seven angels was not an isolated incident, but the first spark that would later ignite Lucifer's own rebellion. Lucifer, once the most beautiful of the angels, had watched from the sidelines as the seven plotted their creation of a parallel universe. Their ambition, their desire to craft something new, something separate from God's design, stirred something deep within him. It awakened in Lucifer a desire not just to question the divine order, but to overthrow it entirely. And so, Lucifer's rebellion followed, not as an isolated act, but as a direct extension of the fall of the seven. But the effects of their sin did not stop there. Their actions gave birth to the Nephilim, the offspring of the fallen angels and human women. These giants, born of both divine and mortal blood, were the physical manifestation of the angels' transgression. They were not of God's design, and their very existence brought chaos and corruption to the earth. Their birth was the direct consequence of the rebellion of the seven, a reminder that when divine order is broken, the consequences are felt not just in the heavens, but in the very fabric of the world itself. The Nephilim, with their unnatural strength and their desire for domination, corrupted humanity. They led men astray, teaching them forbidden knowledge and introducing violence, war, and sin into the world. The earth became a place of darkness, filled with the echoes of the angels' rebellion, and mankind, once innocent, was now tainted by their influence. The sins of the seven angels also planted the seeds of heresies that would plague humanity throughout history. The twisted ideas of the angels, their desire for a new order, for power unchecked, for dominion over creation, became the foundation for countless false beliefs, philosophies, and religions. These ideas, born in the rebellion of heaven, would spread to the farthest corners of the earth, infecting the minds of those who sought power, knowledge, or control over the natural order. In the years that followed, the angels' rebellion cast a long shadow. The world was filled with division, confusion, and a hunger for power that could not be satisfied. Men and women would continue to fight over what the angels had sought: a new world, a new order, a world free from God's influence. And as the centuries passed, the echo of the seven sin reverberated through history, from the first heresies to the rise of false gods and false teachings. Even in the present day, their legacy remains: the pursuit of knowledge, unchecked by wisdom; the desire for power, untempered by humility; the search for control, independent of divine will. These are the same temptations that led the seven angels to their fall. And though they are bound, their ideas continue to infect the world, perpetuating the same rebellion that began long before mankind even knew of their existence. Their sin is a reminder that actions have consequences, that the desire to create outside of God's will leads not to freedom, but to chaos. Their fall serves as a warning for us all about the dangers of unchecked ambition, the perils of seeking power without wisdom, and the destructive force of pride. The seven angels may be bound in chains for now, but their legacy endures, shaping the world and our choices to this very day. And as we reflect on their fall, we must ask ourselves, are we following in their footsteps? Are we allowing our desires for power, knowledge, and control to pull us away from the divine order? For just as their rebellion shaped the cosmos, so too can our own choices shape the world around us. As we close the book on this incredible journey through the fallen angel's story, let's pause for a moment to reflect on the profound lessons we've learned together. The tale of the seven angels who rebelled against the divine order is more than just an ancient myth. It's a mirror reflecting the timeless struggles we face within ourselves and our world. It's the story of pride, of unchecked ambition, of the desire to control and reshape the world according to our will. We see the consequences of straying from divine wisdom, how a small crack in one's purpose can grow into a rift that stretches across eternity. These seven angels were not mere servants. They were the very pillars of creation, entrusted with divine responsibilities beyond measure. And yet, each of them, in their own way, allowed their ambitions to cloud their judgment. Their fall from grace wasn't a sudden, catastrophic event. It was a gradual slipping into darkness, one thought, one decision, one act of pride at a time. It serves as a stark reminder that the smallest desires, those that seem harmless or even noble, can, when unchecked, lead to the most devastating of consequences. Their rebellion didn't just affect heaven. No, their sin was far-reaching. It echoed through the cosmos, influencing Lucifer's own rebellion, the creation of the Nephilim, and the spread of false teachings that would plague humanity for centuries. Their pride, their desire for power, and their attempt to create a new world birthed chaos, confusion, and corruption, not just in the heavens, but on earth. How many times have we seen throughout history the same desire for power? How often do we hear stories of people, organizations, or nations who seek to impose their own will over the world, disregarding the natural order, the wisdom of the divine, or the well-being of others? This story is not just about angels. It's a reflection of the eternal battle we all face, the battle between humility and pride, between wisdom and folly, between obedience to divine purpose and the temptation to control our own fate. But there's more to this story than just the tragedy of the seven angels. There's hope, for in every fall, there is the potential for redemption. In every failure, there lies the chance to learn, to grow, and to turn back toward the light. The angels may be bound in chains for 10,000 years, but that does not mean their story ends in defeat. Their story serves as a warning, yes, but also as a lesson in humility, in understanding the consequences of one's actions, and in the power of redemption. Just as their rebellion had consequences, so too can our actions shape the world around us. The choices we make, whether they are driven by selfish ambition or guided by wisdom, will leave a lasting imprint, not just on our lives, but on the lives of those who come after us. As we continue to explore the mysteries of the Bible, we are constantly reminded of the delicate balance between the divine and the human, the sacred and the profane. The story of the fallen angels is not just a cautionary tale from the past. It's a living, breathing reminder that the choices we make today ripple through eternity. And though the angels may be bound in chains for now, their legacy endures, shaping the world in ways we cannot always see. Their sin is our warning. Their fall is our opportunity to rise higher, to learn from their mistakes, and to build a world grounded in humility, justice, and divine purpose. So, as we close this chapter, I invite you to reflect on the message that these seven fallen angels leave behind. Their story is not just a tale of rebellion, it's a lesson in the power of choices, in the dangers of unchecked ambition, and in the eternal struggle between light and darkness. It challenges us to look within, to examine our own desires, and to ask ourselves whether we are walking the path of humility or falling prey to the same temptations that led these angels astray. If you've found this story as thought-provoking as I have, don't forget to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries of the Bible. Together we'll continue to uncover the hidden truths that shape our world and our understanding of the divine. As always, I'm grateful for your time, your attention, and your willingness to explore these timeless lessons with me. Until next time, keep questioning, keep searching, and may the light of wisdom guide you on your journey.